Sando Trinier San Fernando Story. The Stickman Audio. This is a tribute to Mr. Mathew David Brown the Stickman. The untimely passing of a well-known and well-respected stickman from the twin island nation of Trinidad and Tobago on June 23, 2020, is a blow to everyone who has ever heard of or has seen a stick fight. Mr. Mathew David Brown was the champion and the face of the sport, which celebrates our long history of the martial arts sport known as stick fighting. He was a product of the resilience and tenacity of the American community, where he was loved and admired by all. He was as focused as his ancestors were when they had to survive the harsh conditions as newly arrived farmers and laborers who came to Trinidad following the War of 1812. Stick fighting evolved out of the Kalinda, or the Caribbean songs of the battling troubadours. There was a large migration of French settlers from the French colonized islands to Trinidad from 1777 to 1783. They brought the idea of the battling troubadours from the French, and stick fighting from Africa. This accounts for the singing of the chants and lavways in the French dialect while being accompanied by African drums. During the rise of the Trinidad stick fighting craze, around 1797, the island was in a mix-up. Trinidad had just been captured by the British, so it became a British Crown colony, with a French-speaking population, who lived under Spanish laws. Stick fighting was added to the Canballet, which became the carnival celebrations after the emancipation in 1834. Mr. Mathew Brown is now a historical figure. He has joined a long line of historical figures who embraced the sport of stick fighting. He revitalized the idea of a true champion stickman. Although he hit with strokes like the chopper, the uppercut, the sutan and the casable, he also perfected a move which was called the dentist blow, in more than one occasion. He won his fight after he pointed out to his opponent that there was blood in his opponent's mouth. Apparently, his opponent was unaware that he had been hit in the mouth, and that he was bleeding. In the sport of stick fighting, the winner is the one who draws first blood. Such was the amazing skill of Mr. Brown as a martial artist schooled in stick fighting. He was known by many names, notably King David and Stickman. He followed in the footsteps of the stick fighting pioneers from the various Kalinda yards or gaels around the island. Like the offspring of Kalinda, Calypso and Calypsonians were undervalued, but when steps were taken to correct this, stick fighting was slow in getting equal recognition, even while the stickmen performed for appreciative audiences. A star performer like Mr. Brown filled the arenas and brought great credibility to the sport. Stick fighting in Belmont, Pipero and in Moruga drew large crowds, as these places were communities which supported large stick fighting yards known as gaels. The chants and drumming encouraged the stickmen to dance as they went through the ritualistic motions. The words were meant to intimidate. Why Congo bar, why Congo bar, the length of me wood is the length of your coffin, oh yo you. Another favorite song was, Moma Moma, today is your son funeral, tomorrow is grand burial, if I die in me country, take a towel and band your belly. While the songs were repeated, Mathew Brown, aka the Stickman, got down to the business of executing his elaborate fighting moves. He had many stickman moves: the slide, which is a shuffle to cover ground while advancing or retreating. Then there was the parry, which was the attempt to block a strike. His jab was the direct thrust at the opponent. The bait was his feigning a distraction to avert the attention of his opponent. The carry was moving in and using the stick to force a change of position in the ring. His attack generated a blow or a strike, and his counter-attack followed behind a defensive move. A clash stopped each other's attack, and as his opponent moved forward, he would parry and strike him on the head by a downward strike, as he moved back. With such moves against a fighter, there would invariably be a trickle of blood, enough to stop the fight, leaving Mr. Mathew as the winner of the contest. Throughout all this action, the chantwells produced loud and incessant drumming which was meant to fuel the contestants to higher heights. The songs, which are still used today, are old songs with no known composers. The songs evolved by a process of oral transmission. They were performed by custom over a long period of time. From 1900 to around 1940 that musical form was called Kalinda. It resurfaced after being suppressed by the colonial government in 1881, when the drums were also banned. That didn't stop the music. Nothing could. The tambu bamboo was then introduced at the meets. That was bamboo poles of various lengths and diameters, which were struck or banged on the ground to produce sound. Singing Kalinda songs and drumming was said to cause disorderly conduct and rioting. The non-acceptance persisted until 1937, when the sport was re-established as a controlled sporting event. The venues for the bouts were also expressed in song. In the Junction Tonight, they comin' from all about in the Junction Tonight the biggest bois fight. A famous Bad John song from Belmont was, Fire Brigade Water the Road, Belmont Stickman coming down, who in the way clear out me way, Belmont Woodman coming down. It was reported that in the old days, police officers showed up at the stick fighting venues with warrants because the lure of the fights was so great that wanted criminals couldn't resist coming out to participate. The king of the rope contest was too good to miss. Tambu bamboo was introduced when the goatskin drums were banned by the colonial government in 1881. Bois is the word for stick in the French dialect. The stick was the revered instrument which delivered fame to a competent user and pain to an opponent. The stick is usually 5 to 6 feet long and 7/8 of an inch in diameter. It is made from the yellow pui tree or the sour guava tree. The formula for cutting the wood and preparing it is a trade secret, but it is known that it must be cut on a moonless night, peeled of its bark and pushed down into the heart of a rotting banana or fig tree and left there for 7 days and nights. After that period, the stick is taken out and covered with tallow and buried in a manure heap to cure for 14 days. The stick is removed and bent, flexed and rolled to make it supple or pliant. It is further stored in a dark place for 7 more days before it is ready to be mounted for use in the stick fighting ring. There is a legend behind the mounted stick. A good stickman knew if a stick was mounted, or blessed by an Obia man, and he knew how to strike it to counter the spell his opponent relied on to win the match. Sticks are given names by the fighters. Some notable names were 1 Bois, groaning, Tamer and Boisson. Lavways or back and forth chanting was important as a means of boasting about the prowess of the stick fighter to all challengers. These songs were in the French dialect or French Creole and threatened a beating, even resulting in death to any challenger. In 1979, at the Calypso Review, Anselm Douglas sang a calypso about stick fighting. Here are some of the lyrics. They say Santos get his stick from Maruga, needs a papa who mounted for him. They say that man have very powerful obia, it have no way another man could win. But when Santos get the boa from fingers he catch Malcati right there on the ground. He better say thank God for the shopkeeper, who had to come and soak his head with bay rum. He then sang the lavway. When I dead bury my clothes I don't want nobody to cry for me. When I dead bury me clothes put everything in the cemetery. Moma moma, I done in the ring already. Moma moma, take a cloth and band your belly. Ah yeah, ah yeah. The master of ceremony, Sprangelang, made a mock challenge to Anselm in a very hilarious bit where he blocked and parried Anselm's moves. Lord Zandali sang of his bout with a female stick fighter from Sande Grande. He described how they carried and he hit the first bois, or blow with his stick. The calypso is full of innuendos and double entendres, all of which make up the recipe for a great calypso. Mr. Mathew Brown followed the stick fighting pioneers who gave lessons in the art of stick fighting to younger men. He was intent on passing on the art to the next generation. He will surely be missed. Maybe Mathew's name will become part of a future lavway. I can imagine the drummers chanting, "Where Mathew gone? He gone Maruga Road, Bois, R.I.P. Mr. Mathew David Brown." The end.